They say every small town has its secrets, little quirks, old stories, forgotten traditions. But in the quiet, almost forgotten town of Raven Hollow, the secret was something darker, something nobody dared to speak about openly. Our story begins with the disappearance of a young woman named Emily Carter. Emily wasn't the kind to cause a stir. She was gentle, kind-hearted, always offering a warm smile to everyone she met. She taught at the local elementary school and lived a quiet life in a small house on the very edge of town, where the deep, dark forest seemed to lean right against her backyard. One Tuesday morning, Emily didn't show up for work. At first, her colleagues weren't overly concerned. Maybe she was sick, maybe she'd just overslept. But as the hours ticked by and she didn't answer her phone, a quiet hum of worry began to spread through the small community. A concerned coworker eventually drove out to her house to check on her. What she found was unsettling. Emily's car sat cold in the driveway. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house was eerily normal. Her purse was on the kitchen counter. Her keys were on their hook by the door. Her bed was even neatly made. It was as if she had simply evaporated. The only clue, if you could call it that, was that her favorite walking shoes were missing. It was as if she'd stepped outside and been swallowed whole by the woods. The police were called, and a search of the nearby forest began. But the locals, they reacted strangely. They weren't surprised, not really. The forest has a way of keeping its own secrets, one old-timer muttered, his eyes fixed on the tree line. People sometimes wander in there and just lose track of time. It was a common refrain, a phrase that felt practiced, designed to dismiss and deflect. Raven Hollow was a town where everyone knew everyone else's business. And yet, it felt like everyone knew something they refused to share. Even the town sheriff, a man named Tom Wallace, who had known Emily since she was a little girl, seemed oddly calm, almost dismissive. She probably just needed some time away, he told the state investigators who arrived. This town can be a lot for some people. His explanation felt thin, hollow. But small cracks started to appear in the town's wall of silence. Emily's next-door neighbor, a woman named Claire Jensen, finally came forward with something strange. She said that a few nights before Emily vanished, Emily had knocked on her door late at night, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. She told me someone was watching her, Claire recalled, her voice trembling. She said she could hear whispers and taps on her windows at night. She was so afraid, but she wouldn't say who or what she thought it was. Driven by a growing unease, a group of volunteers, mostly friends of Emily's from out of town, decided to take matters into their own hands. They set up motion-activated trail cameras deep in the woods, hoping to catch a glimpse of anything that might explain her disappearance. For weeks, they found nothing but deer and raccoons. Then, one night, a camera captured something that made their blood run cold. It looked exactly like Emily, but it was what was behind her that was truly terrifying. It looked exactly like Emily, but it was what was behind her that was truly terrifying. Standing perfectly still, almost blending into the shadows, was another figure. Tall, thin, and featureless, it just stood there, watching her. And then, in the blink of an eye, it was gone. The video clip ended. The more people dug, the stranger things became. Back in Emily's house, investigators found hidden notes tucked away in books and drawers. Her handwriting grew more frantic with each entry. She described moving shadows at the edge of her property, whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves, and strange scratching noises outside her home every night. Her very last note, scrawled on a small piece of paper and dated the night before she vanished, contained a single, chilling sentence. "He's closer tonight. I think the town knows him." This revelation cast a dark shadow over the entire town. Who was he, and why would the town protect him? The investigation soon stumbled upon Raven Hollow's most secretive tradition, the Day of the Founders. Every year, on the anniversary of the town's founding, everyone would gather near the edge of the forest for a private ceremony. When outsiders asked about it, the locals would clam up, their friendly smiles vanishing. It was a town affair, they'd say, and leave it at that. Months turned into a year. The hope of finding Emily alive had all but faded. Then, a hiker found shreds of clothing deep in the woods, snagged on the branches of a thorny bush. They matched the outfit Emily was last seen wearing. The clothes were found near a strange, old stone circle, half hidden by moss and thyme. The circle had an ancient, ominous feel to it, as if it had witnessed countless rituals long ago. But again, no one in town would speak of it. 2 years passed. The case went cold. Then, a traveler named Lily Hart, a young woman just passing through on a cross-country trip, arrived in Raven Hollow. She stayed for a few days, captivated by the town's rustic charm. Then, she disappeared. For 48 hours, there was no trace of her. She returned just as suddenly, shaken and confused. She told the sheriff a bizarre story. She said she'd gotten lost on a hike and stumbled upon a clearing. There, she saw people in the forest, their faces hidden by grotesque masks made of tree bark. They stood in a circle, whispering in a language she didn't understand. She said one figure seemed familiar. She was sure she recognized him from the town. The sheriff dismissed her story as a hallucination, a bad dream brought on by being lost in the woods. Her story, however, was enough for state officials to try and reopen Emily Carter's case. But the files were a mess. Key documents were missing. Witness statements were incomplete. And when investigators tried to re-interview the townspeople, they were met with a wall of silence. The town had closed ranks. A week later, Lily Hart disappeared again. This time, she was never seen again. Her car was found abandoned on the side of the road, 10 miles outside of Raven Hollow. Today, if you visit Raven Hollow, it looks like any other peaceful, picturesque small town. The forest stands silent and still. The houses are tidy, their gardens well kept. The locals will smile and wave as you drive by. But those who have lived there for generations know the truth. They lock their doors tight as soon as the sun goes down. They teach their children to never, ever go into the forest. And sometimes, late at night, if you happen to be passing by, you might see strange, flickering lights moving silently between the trees. Officially, Emily Carter is still a missing person. The town of Raven Hollow maintains that everything is normal, but the whispers persist. Whispers that the town has a way of keeping its secrets buried. And they say, if you ever find yourself driving through Raven Hollow after dark, don't stop. Don't look too closely into the trees. And whatever you do, don't answer if you hear your name whispered softly from the shadows. Thank you for joining me on this unsettling journey into the heart of Raven Hollow. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more mysteries. Stay safe out there.